The door clicked shut behind me, and for a brief moment, I thought everything was normal. But in the split second that followed, Rachel's words hit me like a slap in the face, and my entire world began to unravel. Emily needs her real father. I froze. My heart dropped, and the world around me seemed to blur. What was she talking about? I wasn't prepared for this. I wasn't prepared for the bombshell that came out of her mouth. Rachel's sudden admission stuns Ray, forcing him to question everything about his relationship with his wife and daughter. The emotional intensity rises immediately as Ray begins to process her words. What does she mean by real father? Is she referring to Emily's biological father? My name is Ray Keller, and I'm 45 years old. I live in a small town in Ohio with my wife, Rachel, and our 10-year-old daughter, Emily. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and my role as a father was called into question that evening. I work as a maintenance supervisor at a local hospital, a job I've had for years, a job that's never required much thinking outside of fixing pipes and boilers. I'm not a man of big ambitions, but I've always done my best to provide, to be there, to be enough, or at least I thought I was. We had just finished dinner. The remnants of our meal still sat on the table. Rachel, as always, was the first to bring up the day's events. Emily was watching TV in the living room, oblivious of the tension mounting between us. "So, I've been thinking," Rachel said, her tone casual at first. Emily's been talking about her father lately, her real father. I blinked, trying to make sense of her words. "What do you mean, real father?" Rachel's voice faltered, but she steadied herself quickly. She's been asking about him. She's wondering why she doesn't know him like other kids do. Maybe it's time she reconnects with him. My stomach twisted. What the hell was she talking about? Why now? And why the sudden need for Emily to be around her biological father? My blood ran cold. This wasn't about Emily needing a connection to her past. This was about Rachel, and something I wasn't seeing. Ray's realization that his wife may have been in contact with Emily's biological father for some time. A cold sense of betrayal sets in as Ray starts to piece together the cracks in their family dynamic. The stakes are raised when Ray starts to suspect Rachel's actions may be deliberate. I sat there, silent, my mind racing. I had always known about Emily's biological father. He was a part of Rachel's past, someone she'd briefly known before me, a man who hadn't been a part of Emily's life since the day she was born. But for some reason, hearing her say those words out loud made me feel like I didn't know my own family anymore. "Rachel, why is this happening now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The question was out before I could stop it, but the weight of it hung in the air, suffocating me. Rachel looked away. "It's not about us, Ray. It's about what's best for Emily." I wanted to argue, to shout, but I couldn't. The betrayal felt too deep, too real. The next few moments were a blur. I felt as if I was drowning, struggling to process her words while trying to hold on to family I thought I had. But I couldn't. The pieces didn't fit anymore. And it wasn't just about Emily's relationship with her father. It was about Rachel and the secrets she'd been hiding. I tried to shake it off, but the doubt had already set in. I had to know more. I had to understand what was really going on. My family was unraveling, and I had no idea how or why. Ray begins to question whether Rachel has been secretly communicating with Emily's biological father behind his back. He can't shake the feeling that something more is going on, but he has no proof. Yet, "I'm leaving," I blurted out, surprising even myself. The words were out before I had time to process them. I needed to get away. I needed to clear my mind. Rachel stared at me, disbelief in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" "I need space," I said, my voice hollow. "I'm going to Vietnam. I can't stay here. Not right now." Ray's decision to leave, thinking it will help him clear his mind, sets the stage for the emotional journey ahead. But what Ray doesn't know is that his trip will unravel a deeper conspiracy that's been brewing within his family. As I packed my things, I couldn't help but wonder, what happened to the life I thought I knew? What had happened to us? I knew the answers wouldn't come easy, but what I didn't know was that leaving would only open up a world of secrets I wasn't ready to face. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window, staring out at the empty streets of Toledo. The quiet felt suffocating, the kind of silence that presses on your chest until you can't breathe. Rachel was asleep in our bed, the same bed I had once thought of as a sanctuary. But now, it felt like a prison. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her words echoing in my mind. Emily needs her real father. I couldn't shake the feeling of being betrayed, of being left out of my own family story. I had always been the one who held things together, fixing what was broken, keeping the family moving forward. But now, I was the one being pushed aside, like a piece of furniture no one thought about anymore. I had always thought I was enough for Emily. I'd raised her as my own, even though I wasn't her biological father. I'd been there for every first step, every birthday, every school recital. We had our bond. I never questioned it. But now, Rachel was telling me that bond was enough, that Emily needed someone else. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. By the time dawn crept through the curtains, I had made up my mind. I needed to get away. I needed to clear my head, even if it meant walking away from everything for a while. I could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on me, and I knew if I didn't leave, I would suffocate under the pressure. I didn't want to leave Rachel or Emily, but I needed to find out if I could still trust myself, if I could still be the person I thought I was. And the only way I was going to do that was to get away, to go somewhere where I wasn't a father, a husband, or a son, somewhere where I could just be Ray Keller. I booked a flight to Vietnam that morning. It wasn't a well-thought-out decision. It was instinct. I knew I needed space, and I needed it fast. The tickets were cheap, the flight long, and I knew nothing about Vietnam except that it was far away from here, far away from everything that had been weighing on my mind. That afternoon, I told Rachel I was going. She didn't take it well, of course. She was confused, maybe even a little hurt, but I couldn't explain it. I couldn't tell her I was leaving because she had broken me in a way I couldn't yet understand. I just told her I needed some time. I'll be back in a few weeks, I said, avoiding her eyes. I knew she didn't believe me, and maybe I didn't believe it myself. Rachel didn't argue. She just nodded, her face a mass of hurt and disbelief. I kissed Emily goodbye, but I couldn't look her in the eyes. I was leaving, and I didn't know when or if I would come back. I arrived in Hanoi with nothing but my suitcase and a mind full of questions. The air was thick with the smell of food, smoke, and exhaust. The streets buzzed with scooters, people, and the constant hum of the city alive with energy. But amidst the chaos, I felt more isolated than ever. I had expected some clarity in Vietnam, maybe even a sense of peace. Instead, I found myself more restless than I'd ever been. The city was beautiful in its own way, chaotic and vibrant, but all I could think about was the mess I had left behind. For the first few days, I walked the streets, exploring the markets and streets, trying to lose myself in a sea of unfamiliar faces. I ate street food, something I'd never do back home, and spent hours wandering through the old quarter. But each step felt like a distraction from the one thing I couldn't escape, the thought of Rachel and Emily and what was happening back home. I checked my phone constantly. Rachel had sent a few messages, mostly short and impersonal. Nothing about the situation, nothing about Emily. She hadn't even mentioned how Emily was handling everything. I wasn't surprised. I had always been the one to manage everything. Emily's emotional needs, Rachel's expectations. Now, it felt like I was the one being left behind. I tried to get some work done while I was there. I was on a break from my job at the hospital, but it was hard to focus. I found myself looking up flights back home, checking the news, and wondering what Rachel and Emily were doing. But I never booked a return flight. I couldn't bring myself to go back. Not yet. Then one night, as I sat in my hotel room, my phone buzzed with a message from Emily. It was short and to the point. "Dad, are you coming home soon?" It stung. I could feel the weight of her words, even though she hadn't said much. I had failed her. I had left her behind. She was confused and scared, and I wasn't there to comfort her. I tried to call Rachel to ask about Emily, but she didn't pick up. The silence between us had only grown, and now it felt like a chasm too wide to cross. What had I done? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way Rachel had looked at me when I told her I was leaving. There had been a moment, a flicker of something behind her eyes, that made me wonder if she already had plans to move forward without me. But how could I know for sure? I needed answers. I needed to know what had been going on while I was away. Had Rachel been planning this all along? Or was I just a victim of circumstances? By the time I had been in Vietnam for a week, my sense of unease had escalated into something worse. I couldn't escape my thoughts, and they were growing more paranoid by the day. The streets of Hanoi, vibrant and full of life, seemed to mock me. I wasn't there to enjoy the city. I was there because I felt like I was losing everything. One morning, I woke up early, unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong. I reached for my phone, still hoping for a message from Rachel, but instead, I found something that chilled me to my core, an email from an old friend back home. It wasn't the kind of email I usually received. It was about Rachel. It seemed harmless at first, an update about a mutual friend, but as I read on, I noticed something strange. There, hidden in the email, was a reference to a phone call Rachel had made to Emily's biological father. A phone call that took place just a few days before I left for Vietnam. I felt the color drain from my face. This wasn't a coincidence. Rachel had been in contact with him, and now it seemed like she was preparing for something more than just reconnecting Emily with her past. She was planning something bigger. But what? What was she hoping to accomplish by getting Emily's biological father involved now, after all these years? I spent the next few days in a haze, unable to shake the image of the email from my friend. It gnawed at me. It wasn't the first time I felt like Rachel was hiding something, but this felt different. This was bigger. I could feel the truth just beyond my reach, and every attempt to escape it felt like a denial of everything I thought I knew. I couldn't stay in Vietnam forever, especially when I had no idea what Rachel's next move was. But I had to be sure. I had to know if my fears were justified. I couldn't go back home yet, not until I uncovered everything. I started asking questions. I contacted a few of our mutual friends, people who had no reason to lie to me. At first, they were hesitant, reluctant to get involved in something that wasn't their business. But after enough persistence, I got a few answers. One friend, Dennis, mentioned something that made my stomach twist. "Ray, she's been acting different lately," he said over the phone. "More distant, like she's preparing for something. I don't know how to explain it, but I think there's something she's not telling you." Dennis wasn't the kind of guy to sugarcoat things. I trusted him, and hearing this made everything feel worse. Was Rachel planning something? Was this just a phase? Or had she been orchestrating this all along? I went online and dug through old messages, tried to piece together the conversations I'd missed. I found more references to Emily's biological father. Small things. Nothing too obvious, but enough to make me feel like I was chasing shadows. My head was spinning, and the more I uncovered, the more I realized how deeply Rachel's actions ran. I checked my phone again. There was a message from Rachel. I hesitated before opening it, dreading what might be inside. She kept things impersonal. Nothing about the situation, just pleasantries and small talk. But there was something buried in her words. Something off. She wrote, "I know you're upset, but I think you're overreacting. Emily just wants to know where she comes from. She deserves to have a connection with him." The words were cold, detached. She deserves to have a connection with him. It was as if she wasn't talking about Emily anymore, but about something else. Something hidden. Maybe I was overreacting. But in my gut, I knew something wasn't right. It had been nearly 2 weeks since I'd left for Vietnam, and I couldn't ignore the growing unease gnawing at me. I had my answers, but they weren't complete. The more I dug, the more I realized that I was still on the edge of something. Something I hadn't fully uncovered yet. I had to return home, face Rachel, and confront the reality of what was happening. I booked the first available flight. The decision wasn't easy. In some ways, it felt like I was giving up my search for peace, but in others, it felt like my only option. Rachel had already moved on from me emotionally, and Emily was slipping away too, piece by piece. When I arrived back in Toledo, it was like stepping into a different world. The streets were familiar, but everything felt foreign now. It was as if the city itself had changed, the air thicker, the shadows longer. I couldn't just walk back into my life. It felt impossible. I went straight to our house, unsure of what to expect. Rachel was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in, her expression unreadable. She didn't even look surprised to see me. "Ray," she said, as though we hadn't just been through weeks of silence and growing distance. "You're back." I didn't know where to begin. I didn't know how to say the things I needed to say. So I started with the most obvious question. "What's going on, Rachel? Why have you been hiding things from me?" Rachel didn't flinch. She met my gaze head on, her eyes cold but steady. "I'm not hiding anything, Ray. I'm just trying to do what's best for Emily." The words hit me like a punch. What's best for Emily? Was that really her reasoning, or was this just an excuse? Best for Emily? I repeated, my voice rising without meaning to. She's been asking about him for weeks. She doesn't need him, Rachel. She needs me. Rachel stayed silent, her lips tight. Her gaze flickered to the door, as though she was trying to find a way out of this conversation. I pressed on. "And you've been talking to him behind my back. Why? What's going on between you two?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Rachel exhaled slowly and then looked away. "I didn't think you'd understand, Ray. I thought you'd feel threatened, but Emily has every right to know her father." I stared at her, disbelief coursing through me. "You've been planning this for months, haven't you?" Rachel's face hardened. "No, I haven't been planning anything. I'm just trying to make things right. I think Emily should have the chance to know who he is." The words were a slap in the face. I wanted to yell, to scream, to demand that she understand how much this hurt me, but I couldn't. My chest felt tight, and I couldn't breathe. Every word she spoke felt like a knife twisting deeper. I spent the next few days trying to process everything, but I couldn't. Every time I thought I had a grip on the situation, something else would happen to shake me. Rachel was distant. Emily barely spoke to me, as though she had already made her decision about who was going to be in her life. But nothing hurt more than seeing the subtle way Rachel had changed. It wasn't just the fact that she had been talking to Emily's biological father. It was the way she looked at me, like I wasn't enough, like I was an afterthought. Every evening after work, I'd come home to an empty house. Rachel would be in the living room, staring at her phone, and Emily would be in her room, texting or doing whatever she was doing. I felt like I was losing them both, piece by piece. I was starting to wonder if there was even a place for me in their lives anymore. One night, I came home late from work and found Rachel in the kitchen, packing a suitcase. She didn't notice me at first, but when she looked up, she froze. "Rachel," I said, my voice quiet, but carrying the weight of everything that had happened. "What are you doing?" She sighed, her face softening. "I need to clear my head, Ray. I'm going to visit my sister for a few days." I could hear the unspoken words between us. It wasn't just about needing space. It was about her needing distance from me, from this life we had built together. The realization hit me like a punch. We were unraveling, slowly, quietly, like a thread pulled loose. I hadn't expected Rachel to leave so soon, but once she did, the house became eerily silent. I couldn't shake the feeling of finality hanging over me. It wasn't just her physical absence. It was the absence of trust, the absence of any connection I once thought was unbreakable. The days following Rachel's departure were spent in a blur. I went to work, did my usual tasks, and tried to go through the motions of life. But every time I came home, the emptiness felt heavier. The space between us was growing wider by the day, and I was beginning to wonder if it was even possible to repair what had been broken. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if Rachel was out there, somewhere, talking to Emily's biological father, or if they were planning a life without me. The questions gnawed at me constantly, and each unanswered question only made the hurt deeper. I couldn't just sit here anymore. I needed answers. I needed closure. And I needed to stop pretending that everything would magically fall back into place. This wasn't just about Emily reconnecting with her father. It was about Rachel deciding that I wasn't enough. I wasn't the man she needed anymore. That afternoon, I called Rachel. My hand trembled as I dialed a number. It had been days since we spoke, and I couldn't live in limbo anymore. I needed her to face what was happening between us. She picked up after the first ring. "Ray, I didn't expect you'd call," she said, her voice steady but guarded. "Are you coming back?" I asked, not bothering with small talk. The question hung between us, fragile but necessary. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathe, almost like she was weighing her words. "I'm not sure, Ray. I think you need to figure things out, too." The words stung more than I expected. She was giving me an ultimatum without saying it directly. She wasn't coming back. Not unless I understood her reasoning. Unless I accepted her decisions. "I can't fix this if I don't understand it," I said, my voice low, steady despite the hurt. "Tell me what's really going on, Rachel. Tell me why this happened." Her sigh over the phone was thick with the weight of everything unsaid. "It's not just about Emily's father. It's about me, Ray. I've been unhappy for a long time. I don't think we're the same people anymore." Her words hit me like a slap. Unhappy? We'd been together for years, built a life together, and she was telling me now that she had been unhappy all this time? "I don't want to live like this anymore," she added softly. I thought that maybe if Emily had the chance to know her biological father, things might make more sense. "I don't want to feel like I'm living a lie." Her voice faltered, and for the first time in a long while, I heard the vulnerability in it. It made me feel like maybe I wasn't the only one suffering, but it didn't change the fact that she had made a choice without consulting me. It didn't change the fact that everything had shifted, and I was left reeling. The confrontation with Rachel left me with more questions than answers. I spent the next few days in a haze, unable to think clearly. The tension between us was palpable, and the weight of what had been said lingered in the air like smoke. Rachel wasn't coming back. She had already decided. But the hardest part was facing Emily. My daughter was caught in the middle of this mess, and I hadn't even realized how much she had been impacted by the distance between Rachel and me. She hadn't said much, but there was an odd detachment in her eyes now. It wasn't like the Emily I knew. I tried to talk to her, but every time I opened my mouth, it felt like I was talking to a stranger. She didn't ask questions, didn't want to know why I was so distant. She just shut down. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. One evening, I walked into her room to find her staring at the wall, her school book spread out in front of her, but her attention elsewhere. "Em, you okay?" I asked gently, stepping into the room. She didn't look up. "I'm fine, Dad." The words were flat, empty. There was no warmth behind them, no acknowledgement of the life we had shared. I walked over and sat on the edge of her bed, unsure of what to say next. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I never wanted you to feel like you were caught in the middle." She finally turned to look at me, but there was no emotion in her gaze. "It's fine, Dad. I'm fine." The words stung. It felt like I was losing her, too, in a way I hadn't expected. My heart broke as I watched her pull away, her shield of indifference locking her emotions down. After that night, the house felt even emptier. Rachel wasn't home, and Emily was more withdrawn than ever. I started to wonder if there was a way back from this, if the walls I had built between us could ever come down. But as the days passed, I knew deep down that things had already changed. We couldn't go back to how we were before. That evening, I found myself standing outside the house, staring at the empty driveway. It had been weeks since Rachel left, and I still couldn't make sense of it. Part of me wanted to believe that she would come back, that we would work through this together. But another part of me knew that we had already crossed a line from which there was no return. Days turned into weeks. I had kept myself busy with work, but the silence at home was overwhelming. Rachel's absence hung over the house like a cloud, and Emily's detachment only deepened the sense of isolation. I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't know how to fix me. I tried calling Rachel again, but each conversation ended in the same way. Her calm, collected responses that felt like a barrier between us. She wasn't going to change her mind. She was already moving forward, and I was stuck in the past, holding on to a marriage that no longer felt like mine. One afternoon, Emily came to me, her eyes red from crying. "Dad, I don't know what's going on. Why is everything different?" Her words broke something inside me. I had been so focused on my own pain that I hadn't realized how much this had affected her. I pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. I'm so sorry, I whispered, my voice cracking. I never meant for any of this to happen. She cried in my arms, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was connecting with her again. We sat there, just holding each other, as the world outside seemed to fall away. It wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be quick. But maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what was broken. As the days passed, I started seeing a therapist. I realized that I needed help. I couldn't fix this on my own. I couldn't expect to heal when I was still holding on to a marriage that wasn't mine anymore. Rachel had made her choice, and I had to make mine. I wasn't ready to forgive her. Not yet. But I was ready to heal. For Emily. For myself. For the future. As I stood there, a quiet voice in my head whispered, "What's next?" For the first time in years, I didn't have an answer. But that was okay. For once, I was living life on my own terms. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. It took a long time to heal, and I'm still a work in progress. I want to ask you guys if you ever had a moment that felt like an ending, but turned out to be a new beginning. Let me know in the comments below if my story resonated with you. I'd be so grateful if you'd give this video a like and subscribe for more stories. It really helps the channel out. See you in the next one.